Hey there, friends. It's Laurie. Happy holidays. Today I'm sharing 3 new Christmas and winter DIYs. I did use mostly Dollar Tree supplies, and with that, let's get busy. To make the lantern for my elves, I'm starting with two 5-inch tapered candle holders from the Dollar Tree. These will become the base for the lantern, and I'm attaching them together using some E6000. I'm turning one upside down, adding on a generous amount of the glue, and then attaching the two pieces together. While those are setting up, I'm using one of the plastic LED lanterns, and this came from the Dollar Tree as well. Because I'll be attaching this to the base, there'll be no access to the candle inside, so I'm going to remove it. I'll be adding it back into the lantern, but first I'm painting the flame with some yellow acrylic paint. The E6000 has set up, and now I'm giving the base and the lantern a coat of satin white spray paint. Even though the lantern's white, I wasn't sure if it was a different shade than the spray paint, so that's why I gave it a coat as well. I added the candle back inside and used a little bit of hot glue to help hold it in place. There's a seam where I had attached the two candlesticks together and I want to hide it, so I'm using some of the striped Christmas ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I wrapped it around to get its length, and after cutting it, I attached it onto the base using some hot glue. I attached the lantern to the base using my hot glue gun. I'm using one of the plush boy and girl elves from the Dollar Tree. I removed the tags from both of them, and now I'm going to change them up just a bit. I'm starting with the boy elf, and I'm cutting some little slits in the top back of his legs. I'm using some polyfill that I had on hand, and I'm stuffing it into the elf's shoes and legs. Because it is a bit of a tight fit, I did use the end of a dowel to help push it inside. I made sure as I was adding it to fill out the feet completely. When I was done, I then followed the same instructions for his hands and arms, making a small slit in the upper part of the arm and then tucking some polyfill in to fill it out. When I was done, I did use my hot glue gun to close up the little slits on the back of the legs and the arms, but you can always sew them if you prefer. Once the boy elf was complete, I then stuffed the arms and the legs of the girl elf. To accent their hats and shoes, I'm using 3 green and 3 red Dollar Tree jingle bells. I'm using 2 of the green jingle bells, hot gluing one on the tip of the boy elf shoes. I then attached one of the red jingle bells onto the tip of the boy elf's hat. I then attached the opposite colors onto the girl elf, the 2 red on her shoes and the green on her hat. I want to brighten up their clothing just a bit, so I'm using one of these mini Christmas tree skirts from the Dollar Tree. I'm adding some of the white faux fur onto the girl and the boy elf, so I first wrap the end around the elf's head and then cut it to size. I use my seam ripper to pull it away from the red fabric. I then used my hot glue gun and attached it to the girl elf's hat. I'm going to change up her skirt, so I'm wrapping the tree skirt around my elf to find out how much fabric I need. After cutting it away, I then shortened it and I cut it into a bit of a crescent shape. I'm making a short hem, adding hot glue to the cut side and folding over the edge. Now that I'm done, I'm attaching it to her skirt using some hot glue. I attached the sides and then moved on to the back. There is extra fabric, so as I was attaching it, I just cut away the excess material. I'm making two simple bows, one a little bit larger for the back of her skirt and one just a bit smaller for her hat. For the boy elf, I cut a piece of faux fur, just like the girl elf, and I attached it to his hat. My elves are complete, and now I'm attaching them to the lamppost. I'm adding some hot glue onto the right arm of the girl elf and attaching her to the post. I then added some hot glue onto her skirt and attached her to the center. I'm now attaching the boy elf, placing some hot glue onto his left arm, wrapping it around the post, but this time I'm keeping him in a sitting position. I added some hot glue onto the side of his leg and I attached that as well. To finish up, I added a little bit of hot glue to help hold his legs together. I added hot glue onto the heel of the girl elf to keep her standing straight. I'm using a small silver drum and gift package from the Dollar Tree as accents. I first added some hot glue onto the drum, placed it down on the boy, and then added some hot glue to his hand to help hold it in place. I added some hot glue onto the gift, attached it to the girl elf's hand, and then attached the gift to the base. Because I don't have access to the candle, I'm going to use some fairy lights inside the lantern. I simply slipped them inside, making sure that the battery pack stayed in the back. I clicked on the fairy lights, and with that, my Christmas Elves Lantern is ready for the holidays. I'm popping in to let you know that today I'm participating in my monthly friend collab group. It's being hosted by my sweet friend Liana from Liana DIY. This month we have 2 guest channels, Craftastic DIYs, and A Perfect Place to Start. All 3 have amazing DIY channels, and you can check them out along with my other crafty friends by clicking on the playlist. I'll have it linked below in my description. If you're new to my channel, please consider clicking on that little red subscribe button below and leaving me a thumbs up. To all my returning friends, I'm always so happy you're here, and I can't wait to chat with everyone down below in the comments. To make my star, I'm using 20 24-inch sticks. They do need to be freshly cut and as straight as possible. Dried branches will snap once you bend them. My branches came from my pawpaw trees, but any basically straight sticks will work. I've divided mine into 5 sets of 4. I'm using a heavy jute. I'm wrapping it around the 4 sticks and tying a tight knot. I made sure the ends matched up, and now I'm adding on some hot glue to help hold the jute in place. I'm now wrapping the jute around the sticks about 5 times or so, adding some more hot glue, and then wrapping the jute around about another 5 or 6 times. I added on some more hot glue and held the jute in place for a couple of seconds, then trimmed off the extra ends. I turned the sticks around and I followed the exact same instructions for the other side. When I was wrapping the opposite side, there is a bit of natural resistance, so I did wrap my jute around a few extra times. Now that I'm done, I made 4 more, so I have 5 in total. I'm using 2 sticks, adding some hot glue onto the jute of one of them, and then placing the other on top of it. I'm adding a piece of jute over it and hot gluing the end down. I'm wrapping the jute tightly about 4 times or so around the 2 bunches of sticks, and then I'm adding on some hot glue. And then I use my glue gun to attach the end. I also make sure that the side that I begin with the jute, I also end with the jute. So in case there's a little hot glue peeking through, it'll always be on just one side. Now that I'm done, I'm sliding my next group of sticks under one side. I'm now sliding my 4th stick in and matching up the 2 ends. I'm spinning it around to make it easier to work with, and I'm hot gluing the 2 ends together. I'm following the same instructions as I did for the first set. I wrapped the jute around it tightly and tied a knot. I added on some hot glue and wrapped the jute tightly around. Now that I'm done, I've turned the star over and I'm hot gluing down the ends. And the reason I did this is because this is the original side that I had previously added hot glue. I'm now carefully spinning the star around and once again attaching the 2 ends of the branches together. I'm now sliding under the last bunch of branches to make my star shape. This is where you'll find a little bit of resistance, so if your stick is dried out, it'll end up snapping. I followed the exact same instructions for the last 2 ends to complete the star shape. I'm adding a wreath onto the center of the star. I'm using an 8-inch Dollar Tree wreath form. Mine came in a 2-pack, but I'm only using 1. You'll need 2 packages of the Dollar Tree garland, and I'm cutting mine into 5-inch pieces. I placed my wreath form on a piece of waxed paper, and then all I did was add some hot glue onto the wires and tuck in the greenery. I continued adding the hot glue and the greenery, working my way around the form. I tucked as many in as I could, and it does look a little messy, but we're going to trim it up. Now that it's done, I removed it from the waxed paper, and I'm using my scissors to clean up any of the uneven ends. I'm adding in a second greenery, and I'm using a package of 6 mini pine picks from the Dollar Tree. The stems are a bit too long, so I snipped them off, and then I added hot glue and evenly spaced them around the wreath. But I did leave a section open because I'm going to be adding on a bow. I'm adding the wreath to the front of my star using 3 pieces of 18-inch floral wire. I placed down the wreath and then used the floral wire to attach it to the star. When I attached it, I made sure that I left the empty space open where I wanted the bow to hang on my wreath. You can always snip off the excess wire. I usually just fold mine over. I'm adding on a 2.5-inch wired burlap with snowflakes ribbon. I picked mine up at Michael's. I'm attaching the bow together using a 12-inch piece of floral wire, and I'm using my bow maker that I picked up on Amazon. I'm making a 10-inch tail, 2 4-inch loops, and then following up with another 10-inch tail. I cut the tails off at an angle and then used the floral wire to attach the bow together. I placed down the bow, wrapped the wires around the wreath, and then twisted them tightly on the back of the star. I'm adding on some accents, and I'm using 5 small pine cones that I had on hand. Before I attach them, I'm first finding their placement and spacing them evenly around the wreath. Happy with their placement, I'm attaching them with some hot glue. I'm incorporating a little bit of white, adding some snow to my pine cones using white acrylic paint. I used my paintbrush and dabbed a little bit on here and there. I'm adding on 1 stem of the winter willow, and I picked this up at the Dollar Tree. I clipped it into 5 individual pieces, and then those I snipped into half pieces. I now have 10 pieces in total. I'm adding hot glue to the stems and then randomly adding them to my wreath. Once they were in place, I pulled the stems open just a bit. The last accent is 5 rustic bells that I already had on hand. I placed one between each pine cone, and then happy with their placement, I permanently attached them with my hot glue. I added a simple jute hanger to the top of my star, and now that it's complete, I think it makes a pretty neutral holiday wreath that I can leave up throughout the winter. Getting started, I'm using 24 tumbling tower blocks from the Dollar Tree. I'm attaching 22 of them together using my E6000. I'm now attaching E6000 in between and attaching the two sets together. The glue on my sign is completely dry, so I'm giving this, along with the two extra tumbling tower blocks, a coat of white acrylic paint. I'm using some wooden letters from the Dollar Tree. You can always find these at Hobby Lobby, Michael's, or even Walmart. I'm spelling out Snow Day, and the most important part is to make sure they fit on your sign. I used some black acrylic paint, and I gave my letters a coat. In addition to the letters, I'm using 2 wooden snowflakes from this Dollar Tree pack. I painted both with the same white acrylic paint. I have 2 small crystals that I had on hand, and I'm using my E6000 and attaching one to the center of each of the snowflakes. I'm finding the placement of my letters and snowflakes on the sign. I'm now using my E6000 to permanently attach them. I'm using the small end of a paintbrush, dipping it into some white acrylic paint, and making dots on my letters to mimic snowflakes. I'll be attaching my sign to a wooden sled that I found at the Dollar Tree, and it measures about 9 inches long. I gave it a coat of golden brown acrylic paint. I'm using E6000 and attaching the sign to the sled. I'm now adding some glue to the back and attaching those 2 extra tumbling tower blocks to help hold my sign in place. I'm using a Dollar Tree Snowman ornament, and I'm removing his hanger. His arms are just a bit too long, so I'm snipping them off and making them shorter. I'm adding some E6000 onto the sled and attaching the snowman. This next step, it's completely optional. I'm using some Mod Podge, and I'm adding it to the sled and over the letters and the snowflakes. I'm using some of the Dollar Tree fake snow, and I'm sprinkling it over the sled. I also added some onto the back, the sides, and the top of the sign. To finish up, I'm using the smallest white pom-poms in this Dollar Tree pack. I glued the first snowball onto the snowman's hand. I then added glue onto the sled and made a small snowball mound. I finished up by adding a few extra snowballs onto the sled. Now that I'm done, this cute little snow day snowman definitely won't melt indoors. Here we are at the end of the video, and I really hope you had fun making these Christmas and winter DIYs with me. Please be sure to check out the holiday playlist with my crafty friends, and if you're new here, consider clicking on that little red subscribe button below. I hope you're enjoying the magic of the season. Stay safe, be happy, and until next time, bye everybody!